This podcast is brought to you by odiogo.com.
Horrendous atrocities in Ethiopian prisons. Tweet by Asfa Nagash, MD. Introductory note: Dear readers, it is while I have been on vacation in a county located thousands of kilometers from my second home country, Holland, where I live as exile, that I read this horrendous account of the atrocities perpetrated on fellow Ethiopians. It was while thumbing through the pages of the Ethio media website that I stumbled on this report that carries gory account of gruesome human rights violations taking place in Ethiopia. Words cannot convey what I felt while reading this account of the barbaric atrocities, and I could not sleep that night. After having read the report, the least which I could do was to respond to one of the pleas that is making the world community know about this atrocity of the few brave Ethiopians who, at the peril of their life and in defiance of a vindictive ethnicist regime, compiled and wrote this report. So the next morning, I decided to translate it from the original Amharic language in which this report has been written into English. I have translated this Amharic document with the hope of reaching many people, dotted across every nook and corner of the world, who are concerned with human rights. Once the big hurdle of translating the original Amharic document into English has been overcome, translating the English document into other European or even Asian languages would be a minuscule task owing to the available technology at hand. And I will shortly embark on the task of translating the English document into different European languages: French, Dutch, German, Spanish, etc., with the help of some editorial help from Ethiopian and non-Ethiopian foreign friends dotted around the world. For 4 consecutive days I stayed hooked on a computer located in an internet cafe translating this Amharic document into English, on some days working for as long as 11 hours a day. As I could not afford the luxury of working on my own computer, as I have not taken laptop with me on vacation, I was not able to go through this document thoroughly to make detailed review of minor translation errors. But I believe that my translation would do justice to the original Amharic document in lucidly bringing out to readers what the few brave Ethiopians have compiled with extraordinary dedication, dexterity, sense of patriotism, and above all, sense of humanity. Translating some of the offensive insults directed at defendants by the Tigrayan ethno-nationalists into English was not an easy task, as the nuances in Amharic cannot be adequately captured in the English language. So I had to search words and expressions in English which approximate to the Amharic nuances expressed in the original Amharic document. I have translated almost all of the documents except some of the introductory pages that I deemed are redundant. All the texts put between parenthesis signs are added by me by way of explaining the matter at hand. But I have translated the document pertaining to the defendants and the concluding part in its entirety. All the texts put between parenthesis signs are added by me, the translator, by way of explaining the matter at hand. Let me say that I take off my hat for those brave Ethiopians who compiled and wrote this report. I salute these brave Ethiopians for the altruistic effort in immortalizing the pain of the victims of these atrocities, so that all human beings dotted around the world may do something to alleviate the pain of these forgotten Ethiopians that languish in the dungeons of the incumbent ethnocentric regime that has been ensconced in power since May 1991. I also salute the exemplary Ethiopian from Tigray, Mr. Ermias, who has been rendered physically invalid for putting his humanity before his Tigrayan ethnicity. Shocking as the gruesome manner in which these Ethiopian prisoners were physically and psychologically tortured, anyone who is aware of the hatred which some of these Tigrayan ethno-nationalists, the authors and perpetrators of the atrocities documented in this translated report, were brought up, hearing narratives of alleged victimization of their ancestors by Amharas, cannot fail to fathom or understand their potential capacity and readiness to perpetrate such gruesome atrocities on Amharas and members of other ethnic groups, Oromos, Girigas, Somalis, etc. In addition to this, the ethnic ideology of hate they have embraced during the last 36 years of TPLF's emergence and its pervasive influence or hold on the psyche of its followers has made them to consider anyone outside their ethnic group as a subhuman creature. Even a member of their own group, who does not subscribe to their ethnic ideology of hate, is considered as a subhuman creature. What TPLF has done to Mr. Ermias corroborates this fact. Let me say, in passing, a little bit about the effects of ethnic nationalism on the psyche of those who are afflicted by it. ethnic nationalism has the extraordinary capacity of blinding its followers by suspending their sense of morality. It does so by suspending the conscience of its followers and dehumanizing them to the point of denying the humanity of the members of other ethnic groups or the ethnic others. Identity or ethnic politics, which is based on the ethnic identity of a particular group, demands that an individual suspends his or her conscience and he/she submits to the wish and ideals of the leader or leaders of the ethnic group or organization such as the TPLF. In short, ethnic nationalism de-individualizes the otherwise rational individual, thereby converting him into an unreflecting human being. Such a de-individualized individual or human being, be him a learned professor at the university, Nobel laureate or a lay person, fails to differentiate between what is good and what is bad. He fails to discern between what is sane and what is insane, between what is morally sound and what is immoral, etc. In sum, an ethno-nationalist or an individual who is fired by ethno-nationalism and finds him/herself under the spell of its mesmerizing, if crippling, influence loses his human attribute, that is rational thinking that sets him apart from animals. He stops to think and act as a rational human being, as he has already sacrificed his whole being on the altars of the ethno-nationalist ideology he/she has enthusiastically embraced. The German people under the Nazis were fired and mesmerized by the virulent German nationalist ideology which defined the Jews, Slav, Gypsies, etc. as Untermensch, the German equivalent of the word subhuman in English, and subsequently condemned millions of Jews, Slav, Poles, Gypsies, etc. to the gallows and gas chambers. Places like Auschwitz, in what is today Poland, and Dachau, located in the Bavaria region of Germany, bear witness to the barbarity and inhumanity of German fascism. I had the chance of visiting the museum at Dachau and witnessed the horror it embodies and immortalizes when I visited this place in October 2008. The gruesome images etched on my mind as a result of that visit would remain with me forever. By creating such museums which immortalize the worst aspect of humanity, the Germans have at least teaching their youth to distance itself from ethnic or racially based nationalist ideology which breeds hate. The Tigrine ethno-nationalists in Ethiopia have, on the other hand, built many monuments and one great museum in their capital city Mekelle to teach the Tigrine youth hatred by propagating narratives of the alleged victimization of Tigrines by Amharas. So in the hands of Tigrine ethno-nationalists, even the recent history of Ethiopia under the Derg has become a grist to the TPLF propaganda mill of hate that creates walls among the peoples of one country by fragmenting their common history of suffering, denying their common pain and the common adversity they all faced in those 17 cruel years of the Derg. Under the Derg, all Ethiopians save for those allied with the Derg suffered irrespective of their ethnic, religious or political affiliations. But during the last 36 years, the TPLF leaders acted by denying this common pain of the Ethiopian people by creating a separate Tigrine identity out of this suffering, thereby using this suffering which allegedly was solely suffered by Tigrines as a Chinese wall that separates Tigrines from non-Tigrines. It is this exclusive attitude, born out of this virulent ethnic nationalism, that forms the political backdrop to and informs the report we present hereafter. I will take up the issue of Tigrine ethnic nationalism shortly and hope to share with readers my perspective on the whole issue of ethnic nationalism that is threatening the very coexistence of the Ethiopian and the continuation of this country in its present shape. On behalf of the original authors of this report, I ask all those who read this document to bring this translated document to the attention of human rights groups and government officials and the public in your countries of residence so that the plight of these Ethiopian victims can be highlighted and eventually some action may be taken to curb these terrifying human rights violations. Here follows the translation of the chillingly gruesome account of what transpired in the Central Investigation Office CIO, otherwise known as the Makalawi prison in Ethiopia. Asfa Nagash, MD. The translator of this document is an Ethiopian exile who lives in Holland where he works as a psychiatrist. He can be reached at debesso@gmail.com for any comment that you may have in regard to this translated report, the introductory note and the explanatory texts accompanying this translated document. Horrendous account of ethnically directed atrocities in an Ethiopian prison. The CIO translated from the original Amharic document into English by Asfa Nagash, MD, resident of Amsterdam, the Netherlands, 25th of December 2010. Email address, debesso@gmail.com. About the authors of this report. We, the authors of this report, are individuals who work within the TPLF-controlled prison administration and criminal investigation system. Through what we have compiled in this report, we want to inform the Ethiopian and by extension the international community about the suffering, gruesome tortures and horrendous mistreatment of political prisoners across the country. We want to bring to the attention of readers of this report the hellish condition obtaining in what is known as the Central Investigation Office (CIO) located in Addis Ababa. According to the individuals who prepared this horrifying report at the peril of their lives, what is reported here has bearing only on the officially known major federal prisons under the incumbent government. This report has no bearing on what unfolds in those secret prisons that are dotted in the capital city Addis Ababa and the various regions of Ethiopia and are controlled by the TPLF security officials. This report has no bearing on the thousands of prisons dotted in all regions, zones and districts of Ethiopia and run by the regional overlords. Today the number of prisoners held in the various TPLF-controlled prisons is at least 50 times the number of prisoners that were held by the Derg regime at the height of the 1977 to 1978 period when serious human rights violations were committed. All this is taking place at a time when, unlike during the Derg period, there are no strong opposition groups waging anti-government struggle in the urban and rural areas. This disturbing reality heightens our worry. There is no way we can know, even if we had wished to do so, about all those legally, we mean according to TPLF's definition of legality, and illegally held prisoners whose numbers run in the tens of thousands. This is so because we do not have the wherewithal or the means to collect such evidence. The report which follows hereafter is based on what we have seen with our own eyes and what we have heard with our own ears. The goal of this report: we are not sending this report to you, our compatriots, with the intent of making you hysterically cry about it in horror for a few days and then forget about it altogether. We have closed our doors and cried silently, hiding ourselves behind the dark. We ask you to cry as we did. But let your cry be in public, although we leave the choice of crying in silence unto you. Cry profusely or intently, saying, "O my people! O my country!" We want you to feel the pain of your compatriots and cry for these compatriots who have fallen into the hands of the TPLF regime and are suffering in its dungeons, prisons. But we do not want you to cry and then lapse into silence or omniscience. Especially those Ethiopians in the diaspora should let the world community know United Nations Human Rights Commission, World Red Cross Organization, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Genocide Watch, International Court of Justice based in The Hague, the American State Department, the Human Rights Commission of the European Parliament, and all other human rights organizations and all those who struggle to bring to justice violators of human rights about the human rights violations that ethnically target Ethiopian citizens and are carried out by the ethnically organized, ethnicist TPLF regime in the prisons of Ethiopia. You may question the very wisdom of appealing to these international bodies and ask, what of it, or what is its validity? Yes, today it may not make much sense and may not have that much validity. Many of the governments and organizations know the barbarity and cruelty of the TPLF regime. Especially the Western governments know about it, although they act as if they do not know anything or feign no knowledge of all these atrocities. It is the British who have financed and trained many of the members of the present police force, including us, the authors of this report. As a debt of gratitude to the British for this training they have given to its police force, and owing to TPLF hate for anything Ethiopian, the TPLF regime has adopted alien British police titles, thereby discarding Ethiopian titles. Thanks to this adoption of British police titles, today we and our people have been forced to use British police titles such as police constable, sergeant, inspectors, commissioner, superintendent, etc., which we can hardly pronounce. About what is dubbed crime, this report concentrates on what happened on those individuals who were imprisoned by the TPLF regime in connection with the charges leveled against General Tefera Mamo. It deals with the shockingly horrendous suffering in this hellish place known as the Central Investigation Office. We would also say something about this prison and the suffering that takes place in it. There is a lot more we would let you know in the future about the hidden face of the TPLF regime should we remain alive and should the TPLF fail to lay its powerful hands on us. You may say that the task we have embarked upon is very dangerous. You may also say that the task of uncovering or exposing TPLF atrocities on which we have embarked is a dangerous